Hi guys, so this is the Pulsar X2F Beta version and it's Pulsar's newest, let's call it a community project. Right off the bat I have to state that almost everything regarding this mouse can change in the future since it is just a very early prototype. It's a fingertip grip only mouse, it's made from carbon composite and this is still a very early prototype that a bunch of people got their hands on or will get their hands on soon through Pulsar Lab. So what is Pulsar Lab? It's Pulsar's new concept of trying to involve the community to their mouse design process to really make the products people want. This is the first mouse that will go through the Pulsar Lab process, and in the end the finished product will be hopefully a pure diamond. But I've had my hands on this beta version for 2 weeks now and they just pushed the firmware update to make this mouse able to handle polling rates up to 8K polling, so let's see how good this very early prototype is. So right off the bat you can probably tell that this shape is basically the front half of the X2 Mini, and oh my god, this is a good shape for fingertip grip. I have mentioned previously that I pretty much suck with fingertip gripping, but I quite recently realized when using the X2 Crazylight in Apex that I was fingertipping it by instinct half of the time, which honestly made the process of committing strictly to fingertip with this mouse a lot easier. So for a tiny mouse it's quite wide and it has nice grooves on the sides and on the main buttons that aid you in getting the consistent fingertip. This is also the first fingertip grip mouse that I've been able to fully use the side buttons and scroll wheel without any negative impact to my consistency, which is huge. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about the shape. It's the front half of the X2 Mini. I didn't really feel at any point that there were any ledge or curve on the mouse that made the experience uncomfortable. Of course, the shape will most likely see some adjustments based on the feedback people give it, but personally I can't think of anything shape related to criticize on this thing yet. The material of the shell is carbon composite and it feels more rigid and higher quality than any of the carbon composites I've felt previously. It's quite thick all around and the coating they have used here is very good. Also, I would guess it's the exact same coating used in the X2 Crazylight since it feels the same, looks the same. It is quite grippy for me, so I haven't used any grip tape on it and it's very easy to clean with a damp microfiber towel. The weight of this first beta version is on purpose higher than it will be when it's fully launched, at around 42 grams on my scale. Pulsar had mentioned they can make this as low as 25 grams, but probably want to ensure the build quality is as good as it can be on the first iteration. For me, this current weight felt not that bad to use, since the shape and coating help with being more relaxed with your fingertip grip. I still think a weight at around 30 to 35 grams for this would be the ideal range, but we'll see where it lands. With this weight, the build quality is insane solid. It feels like a very high quality product, which I did not expect a beta mouse to be at all. There was only one thing on the shell that showed signs of it not being a completely finished design, and that was the slightly uneven base where the back beam is located. This made it a bit wobbly with aftermarket skates on a glass pad, which I fixed with some extra double-sided tape, which I made a short tutorial video, by the way. These ledges on the skate locations are also not something I'm completely sold on, and I think the best option would be to mark the positions with some very minimal grooves instead of ledges. So I think something like Final Mouse uses would be the better option here. I think the best skate option for this mouse is dots in any case, but grooves would allow the usage of some larger skates as well. On the bottom we also see the controls it has there. So for the buttons we have the power switch and the DPI button, which will also be the button that is used to change things like polling rate with some button combinations. The ability to do that just released, and changing settings is quite convenient when you remember what combo does what. I believe there will be a web driver as well for changing the settings, which is good. For the main buttons on this version we have Huano transparent blue shell pink dots that have been tuned to perfection. The click is quite light, satisfying, and probably one of the best click implementations I've felt. The pre-travel is minimal and the post-travel is nicely bouncy as well. Looking at the PCB, there seems to be pads for their optical switches as well, so I would not be surprised to see opticals used in some version of this mouse. But I'm more than happy with the switch choice they went with here. The side buttons are also quite stable on my unit, and they seem to be the same size as on the X2 Crazy Light. They are just a bit too together, so it's possible to click the wrong one sometimes, but honestly, they are still the best side button implementation I've used on a fingertip grip mouse. I use the back side button for melee and the front one as the other option for the first ability in Apex, and I've had no issues with using them. The scroll wheel is also quite nice and well balanced scroll. There's no rattliness on it at all, and I think the mouse wheel button is also kind of balanced with the scrolling force. For scrolling, Pulsar has also implemented an option for scroll accel, which you can use to scroll long documents very easily. I can't really think of any gaming use for this yet, but it's there. As for the sensor, they are using their customized 3950 sensor, the Pulsar XS1. Usually I would not talk about the wireless performance of an unfinished product because it would not be that fair, but here with the newest firmware I will make an exception since the performance is quite impressive, honestly. So with 1K, 2K, 4K and 8K polling without using motion sync, minus 1 milliseconds from my wide contour unit was averaged. I tested this many times and the results were very repeatable, so Pulsar's firmware engineer has done quite a bit of optimizing here. The only polling rate that was not constantly hitting minus 1 milliseconds was 8K polling that sometimes measured lower values, but most of the time it measured the same as well. The polling stability is quite nice as well most of the time. Polling seems to occasionally show some noise and missed polls, especially with 1K polling, but generally the stability is really good, which was a really big surprise for me considering the really low motion latency it measures. For the click latency, I sadly have nothing to show because XLAT doesn't seem to handle the USB packet here. Regarding the clicks, one thing I would like Pulsar to add to the settings is a debounce time adjustment. Currently, I don't know what debounce time they use here, and honestly, I don't feel that the clicks are delayed at all, but I feel like that would be a great option to have. So the performance is great, but there are of course some bugs as this is a beta release. There are some random disconnects that happen on desktop use that go away when I restart the mouse, but luckily those have not happened to me even once in game. Then it seems to not like staying at 2K polling and it just swaps to 4K by itself sometimes, but yeah, these are the things that get ironed out eventually. As for my user experiences, this was the first time I really committed to using fingertip grip, and I even carried this thing to work so I would not expose myself to the chunkier mice I usually use for work. From the get-go, I tracked my progress on Voltaic Season 5 benchmarks and compared my results with the highest results I got after I switched completely to glass pads a month ago. My key finding during these 2 weeks is that I was not actually that bad with fingertip grip as I originally thought, and I actually broke some PRs on the second week with this. The scenarios I had the worst performance were something that requires a continuous smooth movement with emphasis on arm aiming, and generally I performed super well in scenarios benefiting from quick micro corrections and something that requires a lot of reactivity. In Apex I also had some trouble with shooting people at ranges, but I felt very confident in close ranges using SMGs, the buffed wingman or shotguns, and overall I would describe my experiences with this being fun, like extremely fun. I will continue my fingertip arc after this video and continue to track my progress, and I will most likely make a video about my findings after some extended time, but I have some backlog starting to creep up, so I have to swap back to regular sized mice for a bit. But all in all, this is a mouse I'm really looking forward to putting more time into. It's honestly quite crazy to actually hold this thing in my hands, since the first time I saw a prototype of it was around August at Gamescom in Germany, and at that point I was like, no way they can make a working prototype with carbon fiber composite in less than a year. But here we are and it's super good already. I'm also very eager to see how great they managed to make it together with the community. But yeah, I guess that is all. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.